Commander Zexthar stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Voidpiercer, watching the tactical display with growing satisfaction. 300 ships of the Galactic Coalition hung in perfect formation around the small blue planet the locals called Earth. For 50 cycles, he had served as the Coalition's primary military strategist, earning his reputation through countless victories against rebellious systems. War, he believed, followed predictable patterns. Superior numbers, advanced technology, and ruthless efficiency always triumphed over primitive emotions and chaotic tactics. The humans had been remarkably quiet since the Coalition's arrival 6 days ago. Their crude radio transmissions had ceased entirely after the initial surrender demand. Zexthar's xenobiology reports indicated that humans were a young species, having achieved spaceflight only recently. Their technology lagged behind Coalition standards by several centuries. Their military doctrine appeared to focus on small unit tactics rather than proper large-scale warfare. Most tellingly, they showed disturbing tendencies toward emotional decision-making rather than logical strategic planning. "Sir," reported his communications officer, a Finland Vorthan named Kleax, "we're receiving a transmission from the human homeworld." Zexthar's 4 eyes focused on the main screen as a human face appeared. The creature looked unremarkable by galactic standards. 2 eyes, limited sensory apparatus, no natural weapons or armor. The human appeared to be an elderly male, wearing what intelligence reports identified as military regalia. "I am Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force," the human said in accented galactic standard. "We have considered your demands for unconditional surrender." Zexthar activated his translator and responded. "Wisdom prevails, human. Your species shows intelligence in recognizing the futility of resistance. Prepare to transmit your surrender protocols." The human's expression shifted slightly. Zexthar's cultural analysis subroutines identified this as what humans called a smile, typically indicating pleasure or satisfaction. This seemed inconsistent with defeat. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding," Admiral Chen continued. "We're not surrendering. We're giving you one final chance to leave our system peacefully." Silence filled the bridge. Zexthar's tactical staff exchanged glances that mixed confusion with amusement. A species that barely qualified for spacefaring status was threatening the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Human Chen," Zexthar said slowly, "perhaps your translation systems are malfunctioning. We have 300 capital ships surrounding your planet. Our smallest escort vessel possesses more firepower than your entire global military. Your technology is primitive by our standards. You have no colonies, no allies, and no strategic resources of significance. Please explain your logic." Admiral Chen's smile widened. "You're absolutely right about our technology. You're right about our numbers. You're even right about our lack of allies. But, you've made one critical error in your assessment. Which is? You think you understand war." The transmission ended. Zexthar stared at the blank screen for several moments before turning to his tactical officer. "Status report on human military capabilities." Subcommander Veltar consulted his instruments. "Unchanged, sir. We detect approximately 200 spacecraft in their orbital defense grid. Most appear to be converted civilian vessels. Their largest ship masses less than 1/10 of our cruisers. No energy signatures indicating advanced weapon systems. No defensive installations beyond basic particle barriers around their major population centers." Zexthar nodded. The humans were clearly attempting psychological warfare, hoping to delay the inevitable through bluffing. He had encountered similar tactics among primitive species before. They always failed. "Begin the demonstration," he ordered. "Target one of their outer settlements. Something visible from their homeworld but not strategically significant. We'll show them the cost of defiance." The settlement of New Geneva orbited Earth's moon, housing roughly 50,000 humans engaged in mining operations. It possessed minimal defensive systems and no apparent military value. A perfect target to break human morale without significant tactical loss. The dreadnought Star Render moved into position, its massive displacement cannons charging with ominous energy buildup. Zexthar watched through long-range sensors as the human settlement's inhabitants evacuated in small transport ships. At least they weren't completely irrational. "Firing solution locked," reported the weapons officer. "Execute." Twin beams of concentrated antimatter lanced out from the Star Render, striking New Geneva's central habitat dome. The structure vaporized instantly, along with 3 square kilometers of surrounding infrastructure. Secondary explosions rippled through the mining facilities as atmospheric systems failed and raw materials ignited. Zexthar waited for the expected human response. Typically, primitive species would flood all communication channels with panicked surrender offers after witnessing such overwhelming firepower. Instead, his sensors detected something unexpected. "Sir," called the navigation officer, "I'm reading massive energy spikes throughout the human orbital defense grid. Their ships are moving." The tactical display updated to show human vessels abandoning their defensive positions around Earth. Instead of retreating deeper into the gravity well or scattering in panic, they were accelerating outward. Toward the coalition fleet. "Foolish," muttered Veltar. "They're committing suicide." Zexthar studied the human formations with growing puzzlement. Their ships moved in tight clusters rather than proper battle lines. No logical pattern emerged from their deployment. Their acceleration curve seemed designed to reach the coalition fleet as quickly as possible rather than maintaining tactical cohesion. "Long-range scans of approaching human vessels," he ordered. The results made little sense. Human ships showed massive internal modifications that defied conventional engineering wisdom. Where coalition vessels maintained careful balance between weapons, shields, engines, and crew facilities, the human craft appeared to have stripped out everything except engines and something else. "Sir," the sensor technician's voice carried a note of confusion, "I'm having difficulty identifying the modified systems aboard human vessels. They appear to have removed life support systems, crew quarters, and defensive systems to make room for cargo." "Cargo? Unknown composition." The containers show no energy signatures, no radioactive emissions, no identifiable technological markers. They're just mass. Zexthar felt his first stirring of unease. In 5 decades of warfare, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something about this situation felt wrong. No rational commander would strip vital systems from their ships to carry inert cargo into a hopeless battle. Time to intercept? 18 minutes at current closure rate. Signal the fleet. All vessels to combat readiness. Prepare to engage human forces as they enter weapons range. The next 17 minutes passed with agonizing tension. Coalition crews took their positions at battle stations while sensor operators tracked the incoming human ships. Long-range communications detected frantic transmissions between human vessels, but their encryption proved surprisingly sophisticated for such a primitive species. 15 kilometers and closing, reported the tactical officer. Human ships are maintaining course directly toward our formation. No evasive maneuvers. No apparent tactical coordination. Zexthar watched the display with growing bewilderment. The humans were flying straight into the most devastating crossfire in galactic history. Either they were utterly incompetent, or... "Sir!" The sensor operator's voice cracked with alarm. The human ships just jettisoned their cargo containers. On the tactical display, dozens of innocuous cargo pods separated from the human vessels and continued on ballistic trajectories toward the coalition fleet. The human ships themselves began desperate evasive maneuvers, finally showing some tactical sense. "What's in those containers?" Zexthar demanded. "Scanning." "Sir, I'm reading massive gravitational distortions. The containers appear to be collapsing." The first cargo pod reached the coalition's outer perimeter just as Zexthar realized what the humans had done. The container's hull peeled away to reveal a sphere of ultra-dense matter held in magnetic containment. A miniature black hole, artificially created and barely stable. The sphere's gravity well captured the nearest coalition frigate, crushing its hull like paper as it spiraled inward. Emergency klaxons wailed throughout the fleet as more pods opened to release their contents. "Evasive maneuvers!" Zexthar shouted. "All ships scatter formation." But it was too late. The humans had calculated their trajectories perfectly. Artificial singularities bloomed throughout the coalition formation like deadly flowers, each one dragging nearby ships to destruction. The massive dreadnoughts found themselves helplessly caught in overlapping gravity wells, their engines unable to break free. Zexthar watched in horror as 60% of his fleet vanished into gravitational anomalies within the space of 10 minutes. The surviving ships struggled to reach safe distances while their crews fought to maintain structural integrity under impossible gravitational stresses. "Status report," he barked. 187 ships lost or critically damaged, Veltar replied, his voice hollow with shock. The humans have withdrawn to the far side of their star. Long-range scans show them regrouping. Zexthar stared at the tactical display where his magnificent fleet had been reduced to scattered survivors. The humans had turned the laws of physics into weapons, using their own planet's industrial capacity to create artificial black holes. It was ingenious. It was terrifying. It was completely contrary to every principle of civilized warfare. Open a channel to Earth, he ordered quietly. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen again, no longer smiling. I see you've encountered our first lesson. What were those things? Kinetic delivery systems. We've been working on gravity manipulation for 30 years, ever since we first detected your survey probes in our outer system. Did you think we wouldn't notice ships the size of cities conducting reconnaissance? Zexthar's mind reeled. The humans had known about coalition surveillance for 3 decades? They had spent that entire time preparing for this moment? You cannot win, he said, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. We still outnumber your remaining forces. Our technology is still superior. This was merely a temporary setback. You're thinking like a Galactic Coalition commander, Admiral Chen replied. You're thinking about ships and weapons and traditional military doctrine. You're thinking about conquering territory and forcing surrender through superior firepower. The human leaned forward, and Zexter saw something in those alien eyes that made his skin crawl. A cold, calculating intelligence that belonged to a predator. We're not thinking about any of those things. We're thinking about survival. And humans, Commander, are very good at surviving. The transmission ended again. Zexter stood alone on his bridge, surrounded by the wreckage of his certainty. For the first time in 50 cycles of military service, he began to wonder if he truly understood war at all. Outside the viewports, Earth continued its rotation, a small blue world that had just announced its presence to the galaxy in the most violent way possible. And, somewhere in the darkness between the stars, Admiral Chen was preparing his next lesson. Zexthar spent the next 18 hours reviewing everything the Coalition knew about human warfare. The files painted a disturbing picture that he had previously dismissed as irrelevant primitive behavior. Humans had spent their entire recorded history fighting each other with an intensity that bordered on pathological. Their conflicts showed patterns that defied conventional military wisdom. They fought wars of attrition that lasted generations. They developed weapons designed specifically to cause maximum psychological damage to their enemies. They showed a willingness to sacrifice enormous resources for symbolic victories that provided no tactical advantage. Most troubling of all, they seemed to view warfare as an evolutionary process, constantly adapting and innovating in response to new threats. The Coalition's xenobiologists had classified this behavior as evidence of human mental instability. Now Zexthar wondered if they had misunderstood entirely. What if humans weren't unstable? What if they were simply evolved for warfare in ways the galaxy had never seen? His contemplation was interrupted by urgent alerts from the sensor array. Sir, called the communications officer, we're receiving transmissions from the outer system. Long-range patrol ships report contact with unknown vessels. The tactical display updated to show Coalition forces scattered throughout the solar system's periphery. 3 patrol groups had been monitoring asteroid mining operations and gas giant harvesting stations, standard procedure for determining a system's industrial capacity. Now all 3 groups were reporting the same impossible situation. Unknown vessels? Zexthar questioned. Our intelligence indicated humans had no significant presence beyond their inner system. That's what we believed, sir. But the patrol commanders report massive industrial installations throughout the asteroid belt. Hidden facilities on the moons of the outer planets. Construction yards that show no energy signatures but appear to be producing something. Zexthar felt a chill run through his carapace. The humans had concealed industrial operations throughout their entire star system. For how long? And what were they building? Visual confirmation from Patrol Group 7, announced the sensor technician. The main screen flickered to display the outer system patrol's feed. What Zexthar saw made his blood freeze. Emerging from behind the gas giant humanity called Jupiter came ships unlike anything in Coalition tactical databases. They moved with the smooth precision of advanced technology, but their design philosophy was completely alien. Where coalition vessels emphasized elegant curves and efficient energy distribution, these human ships looked like they had been built for a single purpose: killing. Angular hull sections bristled with weapon emplacements. Armor plating showed evidence of battle damage that had been repaired and reinforced. Engine signatures indicated power outputs that should have been impossible for vessels of their size. "How many ships?" Zexthar asked quietly. "Initial count shows 47 vessels in the first group." "Sir, we're detecting similar formations emerging from concealment throughout the outer system. Current total exceeds 300 ships." 300. The humans had built a fleet equal in number to the coalition force, and they had kept it completely hidden until now. Zexthar studied the tactical display with growing admiration and terror. The human strategy was becoming clear. The orbital defense grid had been bait. The artificial black hole attack had been designed to reduce coalition numbers while revealing their tactical capabilities. Now the real human fleet was moving into position for the actual battle. "Sir," interrupted Sub-Commander Veltar, "incoming priority transmission from Admiral Chun." The human appeared on screen, now wearing what appeared to be combat armor rather than dress uniform. Behind him, Zexthar could see the bridge of a warship that looked like it had been designed by a committee of predators. "I thought you should know," Admiral Chun said without preamble, "that you're not the first galactic power to visit our system." Zexthar's four eyes widened. "Explain." 87 years ago, the hegemony sent a survey fleet to catalog our solar system. 17 ships, if I recall correctly. They found a primitive species that had barely achieved nuclear technology. Very non-threatening. The human gestured to something off-screen, and the display changed to show what appeared to be a museum exhibit. Preserved alien technology, including weapons and armor that Zexthar recognized as hegemony design. The hegemony commander made the same assumptions you did. He saw a young species with limited technology and assumed we would submit to superior firepower. He was wrong. What happened to them? Admiral Chan's expression didn't change. "We learned." The transmission showed more exhibits. Coalition intelligence had never received reports of hegemony contact with humans because there had been no survivors to file reports. The humans had captured every ship, every piece of technology, every tactical manual. They had spent nearly a century reverse engineering galactic military science while pretending to be ignorant primitives. 31 years ago, the consortium sent 3 ships to establish a trading post in our outer system. We thanked them for their generous gifts and told them we weren't interested in galactic commerce. More exhibits appeared on the screen. Consortium technology, weapons, and what appeared to be detailed anatomical studies of several galactic species. 19 years ago, the Nexus Republic sent an expedition to recruit humans as auxiliary troops for their territorial expansion. We politely declined their offer. Zexthar saw the pattern now. Every major galactic power had made contact with humanity over the past century. None had reported successful contact because none had survived the encounter. The humans had been systematically harvesting galactic military technology while maintaining the illusion of primitive isolation. "You've been preparing for this war for decades," he said. "We've been preparing for war since we first looked up at the stars and realized we weren't alone," Admiral Chen replied. "The question was never if someone would eventually come to conquer us. The question was whether we would be ready when they arrived." The display showed the full scope of human preparation. Hidden shipyards throughout the solar system. Weapon testing ranges in interstellar space. Training facilities built inside asteroids where entire human populations had learned to operate captured galactic technology. "Your coalition wasn't the first to underestimate us," Admiral Chen continued. "But you might be the last." The transmission ended, leaving Zexthar to contemplate the magnitude of human deception. The species he had dismissed as primitive savages had been running a century-long intelligence operation against the entire galaxy. They had studied every major military power, captured examples of their best technology, and prepared countermeasures for every known tactical doctrine. "Sir," called the tactical officer, "human fleet is moving to intercept. They're using formation patterns I don't recognize." Zexthar studied the approaching human ships with new eyes. Their movements showed none of the rigid discipline of coalition forces. Instead, they flowed like living things, constantly shifting position in response to changing tactical conditions. Each ship seemed to operate with complete autonomy while somehow maintaining perfect coordination with the larger group. Analysis of human tactical patterns? Unknown, sir. They don't match any doctrine in our databases. The formations appear chaotic, but there's an underlying structure we can't identify. Zexthar realized he was looking at the evolution of human warfare taken to its logical extreme. These weren't formations designed by military academies or tested in simulation chambers. They were tactics that had been developed through actual combat experience, refined through generations of conflict, and adapted for three-dimensional space warfare. Sir, the communications officer interrupted, we're receiving transmissions from Coalition Command. They're demanding status reports from all fleet elements. Tell them we've encountered unexpected resistance and are adapting our tactical approach, Zexthar replied. He couldn't bring himself to report the truth. That the supposedly primitive humans had reduced his fleet by 60% in the opening engagement. That they had been preparing for galactic war for nearly a century. That everything the Coalition thought it knew about Earth was wrong. Sir, human fleet has reached weapons range. There, sir, what are they doing? The tactical display showed human ships breaking formation and accelerating directly toward Coalition vessels. Not in attack formation, but, individually, each ship choosing its own target and approach vector. It was either brilliant tactical innovation or complete madness. All weapons, prepare to engage. Target the nearest human vessels and... The first human ship reached firing range and immediately demonstrated why Coalition military doctrine had proven inadequate. Instead of exchanging fire at maximum range like civilized species, the human vessel accelerated directly into close combat range while its weapons systems opened fire. Zexthar watched in amazement as human weapons tore through Coalition shields like they were non-existent. The energy signatures didn't match anything in tactical databases. These weren't copies of captured galactic technology. The humans had improved it. Sir, human weapons are penetrating our defensive systems. Shield generators are failing across the fleet. How is that possible? Unknown, sir. Their energy output levels are consistent with captured hegemony plasma cannons, but the beam coherence is significantly improved. They appear to have solved the quantum degradation problem that limits effective range. More human ships close to combat range, and Zexthar began to understand the true scope of human tactical thinking. They didn't fight like any galactic species he had encountered. They fought like pack hunters, coordinating their attacks to isolate and overwhelm individual targets. Coalition ships tried to maintain proper battle lines and supporting formations, but human vessels flowed around their positions like water finding cracks in stone. Every time Coalition forces tried to establish a firing solution, human ships would vanish behind cover provided by other vessels, only to emerge from unexpected vectors. Sir, we've lost contact with the cruiser Starforge. Human ships have surrounded it and, sir, they're not destroying it. Zexthar focused on the tactical display to see something that defied comprehension. Human vessels had disabled the Coalition cruiser without destroying it, then deployed what appeared to be boarding craft. They were capturing Coalition technology in the middle of battle. They're studying our ships, he said quietly. They're learning our capabilities while we fight them. Sir, should we implement Scorched Earth protocols? Prevent capture of Coalition technology? Zexthar hesitated. Coalition doctrine called for destroying damaged vessels to prevent enemy capture, but something about the human approach made him reconsider. They weren't just winning this battle. They were using it as a learning experience to improve their capabilities for future conflicts. Sir, the sensor operator called urgently, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the human fleet. All vessels are charging what appear to be primary weapons systems. Evasive maneuvers. All ships scatter formation and prepare for. The human fleet fired in perfect synchronization. Not at Coalition ships, but at specific points in space that seemed tactically irrelevant. Zexthar watched in confusion as human weapons created a network of energy distortions throughout the battle area. What are they targeting? Unknown, sir. They appear to be firing at empty space. Then, Zexthar saw the pattern. The humans weren't trying to hit Coalition ships directly. They were creating a web of energy fields that would channel Coalition vessels into predetermined positions. Tactical herding on an unprecedented scale. All ships, reverse course immediately. Exit the engagement area. But it was too late. Coalition vessels found themselves trapped within corridors of lethal energy, forced to follow paths that led them directly into human firing solutions. The humans had turned space itself into a weapon. As his fleet suffered catastrophic losses, Zexthar finally understood what Admiral Chen had tried to tell him. The coalition fought wars to achieve political objectives through superior force. Humans fought wars to survive, which meant they fought them differently than anyone else in the galaxy. And they were very, very good at surviving. The battle lasted 6 hours, though Zexthar would later reflect that calling it a battle was generous. Battles implied some degree of tactical parity between opposing forces. What happened in Earth's orbital space was more accurately described as an education in the futility of conventional military thinking when applied to an unconventional enemy. By the end of the engagement, coalition losses exceeded 90%. The surviving ships, including Zexthar's flagship, remained operational only because the humans had deliberately allowed them to survive. He understood this because no force capable of the tactical precision he had witnessed would accidentally leave witnesses. "Damage report," he ordered, though the answer was academic at this point. "All escort vessels destroyed or captured," Sub-Commander Veltar replied. His voice carried the hollow tone of someone trying to process impossible information. 14 capital ships destroyed outright. 18 captured intact with crews held prisoner. We have 7 operational vessels remaining, including the flagship. 7 ships from a fleet of 300. The coalition's most experienced military commander had just suffered the most decisive defeat in galactic military history. Against a species that supposedly didn't understand modern warfare. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "incoming transmission from human fleet commander." Admiral Chen appeared on the main screen, now broadcasting from what was obviously the bridge of a captured coalition vessel. Behind him, Zexthar could see human technicians working alongside coalition prisoners to examine alien technology. The humans weren't just capturing ships. They were integrating coalition systems into their own tactical networks in real time. "Commander Zexthar," Admiral Chen said politely, "I believe we need to discuss terms." "Terms?" Zexthar felt a bitter laugh escape his throat. "You have destroyed my fleet. What terms could there possibly be?" "The terms under which you will return to coalition space and deliver our message to your government." Zexthar's 4 eyes focused sharply on the human. "You're releasing us?" "The 7 surviving ships, yes. Along with complete tactical recordings of this engagement and a formal communication for coalition leadership." This made no sense according to any military doctrine Zexthar knew. Victorious forces didn't release enemy commanders to report their defeat. They certainly didn't provide enemy governments with detailed information about their own capabilities. "Why?" he asked. Admiral Chen's expression grew thoughtful. "Because the next fleet that arrives in this system will be larger. Better equipped. More determined. And we want them to understand exactly what they're facing before they make the same mistake you did." The human gestured to something off-screen, and the display changed to show a detailed analysis of the recent battle. Every tactical movement, every weapon deployment, every strategic decision was laid out with clinical precision. "Your military doctrine is based on the assumption that superior technology and numbers guarantee victory," Admiral Chen continued. "It works well against species that fight wars the same way you do. But we've had 5,000 years to develop warfare that doesn't follow those rules." The display showed human tactical innovations that had no equivalent in coalition military science. Weapons that could be reconfigured during battle to counter specific defensive systems. Ships that could share processing power to create distributed tactical intelligence. Communication systems that could coordinate complex maneuvers without any central command structure. "We don't fight wars to conquer territory or impose political will," Admiral Chen explained. "We fight wars to ensure our species survives to fight the next war. That means we fight them differently." Zexthar studied the tactical analysis with growing comprehension. Every human innovation was designed around a single principle: adaptive survival. Their technology could be modified in the field. Their tactics could evolve during combat. Their strategic planning assumed they would always be outnumbered and outgunned, which meant they had to be smarter and more flexible than their enemies. "This is why you're releasing us," he said. "You want the coalition to send a larger fleet." "We want the coalition to send their best fleet," Admiral Chen corrected. "Because when we defeat that fleet, every other galactic power will understand the new situation. And, maybe, just maybe, we can avoid fighting the same war 17 different times against 17 different empires. The human gestured again, and the display showed something that made Zextar's blood freeze. A comprehensive list of every known galactic military power, including detailed assessments of their technology, tactics, and strategic capabilities. The humans hadn't just been studying coalition forces. They had been preparing to fight the entire galaxy. The hegemony will rebuild their fleet and try again in 15 years, Admiral Chen said matter-of-factly. The consortium will attempt economic warfare followed by military action in 8 to 10 years. The Nexus Republic will try to form an alliance with other powers to share the cost of conquest. We've run the projections. Without intervention, we'll be fighting galactic powers continuously for the next century. So what do you propose? We propose demonstrating that humanity is not a target for conquest. We're a species that other galactic powers should leave alone. The display changed again to show human industrial capacity throughout the solar system. What Zextar saw defied every assumption about human capabilities. Massive manufacturing complexes that could produce entire fleets. Research facilities that were advancing human technology at an exponential rate. Military training centers that were producing soldiers specifically designed for space warfare. How long have you been preparing for galactic conflict? Zextar asked. Since we first achieved spaceflight and realized we weren't alone, Admiral Chen replied. Every human political system, every economic structure, every technological development has been designed around the assumption that we would eventually have to fight for our survival against superior opponents. Zextar began to understand the scope of human preparation. Their entire civilization had been militarized, not through conquest or authoritarian control, but through the shared recognition that their species faced an existential threat. Every human was a soldier. Every human facility was a potential military asset. Every human innovation was designed to improve their chances of survival. Your species will never surrender, he said. Our species can't surrender, Admiral Chen corrected. We have nowhere else to go. This is our only planet, our only system, our only chance for survival. When beings have nothing to lose, they become very dangerous. The transmission ended, leaving Zextar to contemplate the implications. The Coalition had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that viewed warfare as an evolutionary process rather than a political tool. Humans didn't fight wars to achieve objectives. They fought wars to become better at fighting wars. Sir, called the communications officer, were receiving detailed files from Human Fleet Command. Battle recordings, tactical analyses, and a sealed communication for Coalition leadership. And our captured personnel? The humans are returning all surviving Coalition crew members along with complete medical care. They're also providing detailed records of interrogation sessions and technological exchanges. Zextar realized the humans were demonstrating something important. They weren't cruel conquerors or xenophobic isolationists. They were simply a species that had evolved to be very, very good at warfare. Their treatment of prisoners showed they could distinguish between enemy combatants and enemy civilians. Their technological sharing indicated they were willing to engage in peaceful contact under appropriate circumstances. Prepare the remaining ships for departure, he ordered. Set course for Coalition's Central Command. As the 7 surviving Coalition vessels began their journey home, Zextar composed his report to the High Council. How do you explain to a civilization that has dominated the galaxy for 3,000 years that they have encountered a species specifically evolved to defeat galactic civilizations? The humans had demonstrated capabilities that challenged every assumption about military science. They could coordinate complex operations without centralized command. They could adapt their technology faster than opponents could develop countermeasures. They could fight at tactical levels ranging from individual combat to fleet engagement with equal effectiveness. Most importantly, they had shown that they understood the true nature of galactic warfare. It wasn't about conquering territory or imposing political systems. It was about convincing potential enemies that the cost of conquest exceeded any possible benefit. Sir, Subcommander Veltar approached hesitantly, what will you tell the High Council? Zextar considered the question carefully. I will tell them the truth. That we have encountered a species that understands warfare better than we do. That our traditional military doctrine is inadequate against opponents who fight for survival rather than political objectives. and that humanity represents either the greatest threat or the greatest potential ally in galactic history. Which do you think they are, sir? Zexthar looked back at the small blue world that had just announced its presence to the galaxy in the most violent way possible. A world where an entire species had spent millennia learning to fight impossible odds. A world that had produced beings who could turn the laws of physics into weapons and use space itself as a battlefield. I think, he said quietly, they are whatever the galaxy makes them. Behind them, human ships began the process of incorporating captured coalition technology into their own systems. Within days, human capabilities would be significantly enhanced by the technology they had captured. Within weeks, they would have reverse-engineered improvements that would make their next engagement even more decisive. The humans were already preparing for the next war, because they knew with absolute certainty that the next war was coming. And, when it arrived, they would be ready. The question was whether the rest of the galaxy would be. 3 standard galactic months after Zexthar's return to Coalition space, High Admiral Mordan stood before the assembled Galactic Security Council in the crystalline chambers of the Central Authority. Representatives from 47 interstellar civilizations listened as he delivered what many considered the most important briefing in galactic history. The threat assessment is unprecedented, Mordan announced, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. Based on Commander Zexthar's reports and our analysis of human tactical recordings, we are facing a species that represents a fundamental challenge to galactic stability. The hegemony representative, a towering insectoid named Galactic, raised one of his 6 arms. High Admiral, surely you exaggerate. One species, confined to a single star system, cannot threaten the established galactic order. Mordan activated the chamber's holographic display, showing the complete tactical analysis of the Earth engagement. Honored Galactic, your own military forces encountered this species 87 years ago. None of your ships returned. We now understand why. The display showed the wreckage of hegemony vessels, carefully preserved in human museums alongside detailed technical analyses. The humans hadn't just destroyed the hegemony fleet. They had studied it, learned from it, and used that knowledge to improve their own capabilities. The humans have been conducting a systematic intelligence operation against every major galactic power for the past century, Mordan continued. Every contact, every survey mission, every diplomatic overture has resulted in the complete capture of our personnel and technology. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembled representatives. The idea that a primitive species had been manipulating galactic powers for generations was almost incomprehensible. The Nexus Republic's ambassador, a graceful humanoid with crystalline skin, projected her thoughts directly into the chamber's translation matrix. If this is accurate, then, human technological capabilities may exceed our own. According to our analysis, human 6 months after the Galactic Security Council's decision, Ambassador Thyalera approached Earth aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Voice. As the Nexus Republic's most experienced negotiator, she had been chosen to lead humanity's first formal diplomatic contact with galactic civilization. Her crystalline form reflected the blue light of Earth's star as she studied the tactical displays that showed the remarkable transformation of the human solar system. Where intelligence reports had indicated modest industrial development, Thyalera now observed a civilization that had undergone explosive growth. Massive shipyards orbited every major planet and moon. Manufacturing complexes stretched across asteroid belts that had been completely converted into military-industrial infrastructure. Most remarkably, human vessels now patrolled the outer system in formations that incorporated tactical innovations from dozen different galactic civilizations. Ambassador, called her aide, a young Nexus Republic officer named Velnox, were receiving a transmission from human orbital control. The main screen activated to show Admiral Chen, now wearing formal dress uniform that incorporated design elements from multiple galactic cultures. Behind him, the bridge of his command ship displayed technology that Thyalera recognized as advanced beyond anything in current galactic databases. Ambassador Thyalera, Admiral Chen said warmly, "Welcome to Earth. We've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time." Thyalera projected formal diplomatic greeting protocols directly to the human translation systems. Admiral Chen, I bring greetings from the Galactic Security Council and authorization to negotiate formal relations between humanity and the galactic community. We appreciate the gesture, Admiral Chen replied. However, I should mention that the situation has evolved somewhat since your diplomatic mission was authorized. The display behind Admiral Chen changed to show a tactical overview of local space that made Thyalera's crystalline structure pulse with alarm. Human ships were engaged in active combat operations against forces that her databases identified as belonging to the Dominion Syndicate, a powerful military alliance that operated outside galactic authority.
Admiral, are you currently at war?
Fialara asked. We are currently defending ourselves against the Syndicate's third attempt at conquest, Admiral Chen corrected. They arrived 4 days ago with a fleet of 800 ships. We've been educating them about the futility of their approach. The tactical display showed the remains of Syndicate forces scattered throughout the outer system. Of the original 800 ships, fewer than 50 remained operational, and those were in full retreat toward the edge of human space.
800 ships? Fialara could barely process the implications.
The Dominion Syndicate commanded one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy.
How did you?
The same way we dealt with the coalition forces, Admiral Chen said matter-of-factly.
Superior tactics, adaptive technology, and a clear understanding of what we're fighting for.
The display showed human forces pursuing the retreating Syndicate ships with methodical precision.
Each engagement demonstrated tactical innovations that Fialara had never seen before. Human vessels seemed to anticipate enemy movements before they happened.
Their weapons systems adapted in real time to counter specific defensive configurations. Most remarkably, their coordination remained perfect despite operating across light minutes of space with no apparent centralized command.
Admiral, the Galactic Security Council was unaware that humanity was facing multiple invasion attempts. 3 major incursions in the past 6 months, Admiral Chen confirmed. The coalition was the first. The hegemony tried again with an alliance fleet 2 months ago. Now the Syndicate. We expect the consortium will make their attempt within the next standard year.
Fialara realized that while the galactic powers had been debating diplomatic approaches, humanity had been fighting a series of wars against every major military force in the galaxy. And winning decisively. This changes the nature of our diplomatic mission, she said carefully. The Security Council's offer of membership assumes humanity desires integration with galactic civilization.
We do, Admiral Chen replied.
But not on the terms originally proposed. The display showed comprehensive intelligence reports on every galactic civilization, including detailed assessments of their military capabilities, political structures, and strategic intentions. Humanity had been studying the galaxy far more thoroughly than the galaxy had studied them.
Admiral, what terms would humanity find acceptable? Full membership in galactic civilization with equal representation in all governing bodies. Formal recognition of human territorial sovereignty throughout this star system. Mutual defense agreements with all galactic powers. And immediate cessation of all military actions against Earth by any galactic faction. Fialara's form flickered with surprise. Admiral, those terms assume equality between humanity and civilizations that control hundreds of star systems. Ambassador, those terms recognize reality.
We have successfully defended against every military force sent against us.
We have demonstrated technological capabilities that exceed any single galactic civilization.
And we have shown that we can adapt faster than the galaxy can respond. The display changed to show human expansion beyond their original star system. Scout ships were already exploring nearby systems.
Construction vessels were beginning resource extraction operations on planets that had been considered uninhabitable by galactic standards.
Human industrial capacity was expanding at a rate that would achieve galactic-scale civilization within decades rather than centuries.
You're expanding beyond Earth, Fialara observed. We're ensuring our long-term survival, Admiral Chen corrected. Every military action against humanity has demonstrated that the galaxy views us as a threat to be eliminated. We cannot remain confined to a single system indefinitely. Fialara understood the implications immediately. Humanity was not seeking to join galactic civilization as a junior member.
They were preparing to become a galactic power in their own right, with or without formal recognition.
Admiral, rapid expansion could be interpreted as aggressive intent by other galactic powers. Ambassador, we have been attacked by 4 major galactic powers in the past year. Our expansion is defensive. We need strategic depth to survive future conflicts.
The display showed human strategic planning that extended across multiple star systems.
Industrial development. Military installations.
Population centers designed to be entirely self-sufficient. Humanity was building a civilization specifically designed to survive galactic-scale warfare.
What assurance can you provide that human expansion will not threaten established galactic territories? The same assurance we have received from galactic civilizations, Admiral Chen replied bluntly. None. The galaxy has demonstrated that it views humanity as a target for conquest. We will expand into unoccupied systems to ensure our survival. Any attempt to prevent that expansion will be treated as an act of war. Thyalera realized she was witnessing the emergence of a new galactic superpower.
Humanity's combination of rapid technological advancement, superior tactical capabilities, and absolute determination to survive made them potentially the most dangerous civilization in galactic history.
Admiral, the Security Council hoped that diplomatic relations could prevent an escalating conflict between humanity and the galaxy.
So did we, Admiral Chen agreed. Unfortunately, the galaxy chose to send military fleets before diplomatic missions.
We have adapted to that reality.
The display showed human military production that now exceeded the combined output of several major galactic civilizations.
Thousands of ships under construction. Weapons systems that incorporated improvements to captured galactic technology.
Training facilities that were producing soldiers specifically designed for multi-system warfare.
How long before humanity achieves galactic-scale military capabilities? Thyalera asked.
We achieved galactic-scale military capabilities 4 months ago, Admiral Chen replied calmly.
We now possess sufficient force to successfully attack any galactic civilization.
We are choosing not to do so because we prefer peaceful coexistence.
The implications were staggering.
Humanity had achieved in months what most civilizations required centuries to accomplish. Their approach to technological development and military expansion operated on timescales that made traditional galactic politics obsolete.
What does humanity want from the galaxy? Thyalera asked.
We want to be left alone to develop our civilization without interference, Admiral Chen said. We want formal recognition of our right to exist and expand. We want trade relationships and cultural exchange with species that approach us peacefully. And we want an end to military actions against human space.
And if those conditions are not met? Admiral Chen's expression grew cold.
Then, we will ensure our survival through other means. The transmission ended, leaving Thyalera to contemplate the most significant shift in galactic power structure in 3 millennia. Humanity had evolved from unknown primitive species to dominant military force in less than a year. They had demonstrated capabilities that challenged every assumption about technological development, military strategy, and civilization growth. More importantly, they had proven that the galaxy's traditional approach to managing emerging civilizations was completely inadequate when applied to a species that treated conflict as an evolutionary pressure.
Thyalera composed her report to the Galactic Security Council with growing certainty that galactic civilization was entering a new era.
The age of established powers controlling galactic development through military superiority was ending. Humanity represented something unprecedented, a civilization that had achieved dominance through superior adaptation rather than superior resources.
The question was no longer whether humanity would join galactic civilization.
The question was whether galactic civilization could adapt to the presence of a species that had mastered the art of evolutionary warfare. As the Harmony's voice departed Earth orbit, carrying humanity's terms for galactic membership, Thyalera watched human ships continue their expansion into nearby systems.
Each new human installation represented a shift in galactic balance that could not be reversed through traditional military action.
The galaxy would either learn to coexist with humanity as equals, or learn to coexist with humanity as superiors. But, one thing was certain, the galaxy would never again be the same. 3 days later, the Galactic Security Council received humanity's formal response to their diplomatic overture.
The terms were non-negotiable. The timeline was immediate. And, the consequences of refusal were explicitly clear. For the first time in galactic history, an emerging civilization was dictating terms to the established galactic order. And, for the first time in his long military career, Sextar realized he had been right about one thing. He had never truly understood war until he saw humanity unleashed.